connecting, mixing with people who you may not have met before and learning about one another and forming those connections. But it's also a chance to learn from someone who perhaps has been there and done that a little bit. And someone tonight we're very, very lucky to have with us, all the way down from Wellington, someone who we've been trying to get for some time, who has an interesting background and very envious, I must say, of her LinkedIn profile, I am, because she's worked at some fantastic brands and done some very, very interesting things both here and offshore. She studied commerce at Vix, that's where she started, and began her professional life as an accountant, I think working for Arthur Anderson at auditing, as many young accountants do. I'm sure there might be some people who can share that experience here in this room. She then went on to spend 13 years with Icebreaker, starting out as their company accountant before becoming their financial controller. Very much one for promotion she is. She spent time with Icebreaker in Canada, where she was market manager, or more aptly named president, which she very much enjoyed. She spent a little bit of time away from Icebreaker working for the Vancouver Olympics of 2010 as an accountant there, before she was picked up and told by Jeremy Moon she had to come back. They desperately needed her again, and eventually landed back with Icebreaker in New Zealand as Strategic Projects Director. And nowadays, of course, she's made the move a couple of years ago to J.H. Whittaker and Sons Limited, firstly as their International Markets Executive, and once again another promotion down the track, and now she is, as of mid-last year, the International Markets Manager. So can you please give a very warm welcome to Sarah Sherriff from Whittaker. It's very long and drawn out. Maybe you can grab that other microphone. Sorry about that. And tell me, do you quickly feel as uncomfortable as I do up here?
Balancing it. Okay.
We're particularly lucky because Sarah's actually joining us tomorrow morning at one of our export breakfasts, talking the hardcore stuff around market entry strategies, Malaysia, I think in particular, where you entered last year as part of your role. But tonight it's very much, I guess, conversational. It's very much just a relaxed chat. We don't have a fireside, but frankly we have weather that's almost as good as, I suspect. So yeah, hopefully after spending the last 40 minutes here with us, you feel nice and relaxed and comfortable.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to cover a few bits and pieces, and you guys are going to get a good chance to ask a whole stack of questions about whatever you want to ask. I'm sure you'll be up for that, as long as we're not trying to divulge too many Whittaker secrets.
Yeah, no company secrets.
So I want to talk brand, I want to talk Icebreaker, I want to talk Whittaker's, I want to talk about you. And I guess firstly with that, tell me what it's like just simply working at a company like Whittaker's. What's the culture like inside?
Maybe envelopers?
Yeah, well the envelopers if there are there. I was going to make jokes about Willy Wonka's, but I realised it's another brand, so we can't bring up Willy Wonka.
Yeah, well, there is no Kava tree and chocolate river or anything like that, but it's a real family company, as I'm sure some of you work for. And it's been in the family. It's 120 years old and passed on from generation to generation, and it's got a really caring culture, I think. And also, probably not an appetite for stress. Icebreaker as a culture was, let's do this, let's do that, let's do some more things and pile it on top. And Whittaker's is a bit, well, we could, or we could not, and we'd be a lot less stressed. And that's, I've not had that in my work experience. And I mean, it's more, it's not that there's not an appetite for doing things, but it's being very selective in choosing what we do.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously the company's been around for 100 plus years, and you started down here, moved relatively quickly actually up to Wellington. It's been around for a long time, very traditional structures. I guess we were talking a little bit before, we were having a pre-event conflab, but there's lots of things that are very old, hierarchical, kind of structures there. But when you look through your website and you look at some of the, I guess, the TVCs and various other things that have happened from a marketing perspective, I'm not afraid to innovate. And clearly from a product perspective, certainly not afraid to innovate. So that still comes through clearly.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is a sense of humour on the advertising side, and one of our values is our quirkiness. And it doesn't matter if you're 60 or if you're 20, I think that still comes through. And the commitment to innovation, I think we recognised a few years back, it's you innovate or die. You've got to keep innovating, and it's not necessarily the product in which you innovate with. I mean, something like LMP, you have lovers and you have haters. I think it tastes like soap, or they think it's the best thing we've ever had. But it gets people talking, and it gets, there's a lift overall to the brand if you brought out some new products like that.
Fantastic. And as far as the International Markets Manager goes, what's a week in the life of Sarah at Whittaker's?
Depends what country I'm in, I suppose. I work part-time. I'm fortunate, well, my hours are part-time, I should say. I probably work more than full-time. So I work school hours, and that gives me the flexibility to work in the evenings when most of our markets are on. So whether Asia or the Middle East, being up generally working at 9 o'clock in the morning New Zealand time. So my week is probably half in meetings with a production team, marketing team, whatever it may be, and half talking to our offshore customers. I mean, by background, I'm an accountant and I do a lot of the analysis, and our export team is 2.5 people. So you do a lot of everything. There's not a international markets executive to international markets manager didn't give me a team of people, it just changed from where we want to.
Yeah, because how many global markets does Whittaker's export to at the moment?
We're in 20 markets.
20 markets,
Yeah.
so 2.5 people for 20 markets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you count Samoa and Tonga as a market actually. There's some smaller ones, but in terms of big areas, it's Southeast Asia, Middle East, North Asia, and North America kicking off. So yeah, runs across time zones from 9 hours behind to 18 hours behind, and a few different cultures in there as well.
Sounds fantastic. And in terms of, you talk obviously a little bit around that, we were talking earlier too around the flexibility that you have in your hours, and you were perhaps one of the first, you're sort of groundbreaking as far as Whittaker's goes in terms of implementing a bit more of a flexible work culture. A lot of people here, I guess, would possibly enjoy that, or staff as companies here at Christchurch are starting to see that post-earthquake flexible work culture is the way to go. Is that very much the case at Whittaker's?
It is for me. It's a factory, so the factory needs to have very regulated hours, so there's a lot of people that cannot have that flexibility, whether you're a quality manager or an engineer. There's a few of us in the office who do have the liberty of doing that. It's more, say, the icebreaker culture. We were far more active in Skype meetings and remote, and it really didn't matter where you were, be on the moon and you're still in a meeting. Whittaker's just bought their first conference phone. So that kind of says where we're at, but it's working. It's working for me.
Fantastic. Now, Whittaker, of course, has that wonderful, story that they've had the last 4 years. I don't think there's been a survey, Reader's Digest survey this year. One would assume it's probably going to be much the same, but you guys have been for 4 or 5 years now, I think, New Zealand's most loved and trusted brand, as per that wonderful Reader's Digest survey. So can you tell us a little bit about, I know this is a little bit before your time coming into the company, but I guess how they established that position, certainly how they, some of the stories around Canterbury and how it was unseated from that top spot, but tell us a little bit about, what went on behind the scenes.
I guess for a start, it might be difficult to do 5 years running, because number 2 is the All Blacks, and they've gone back to back. So just putting it out there, if we're not number 1 this year, it's not our fault. But I think it came about, yes, Cadbury did contribute. It was, I think, back in 2009, they got palm oil in their chocolate. But the company was set up on quality, and it's never done anything other than make quality chocolate. And it's also had values of honesty and transparency. So when we were kind of handed on a platter this chance people were looking for something to switch to, they switched to us and found they loved the product, and then built a love for the brand, which probably has come mostly out of social media, I think. And we have the second largest following on Facebook in New Zealand, and we respond to every single comment, and so people feel that they are heard. And we also, I think, we're very transparent in terms of front-footing what we do wrong. I don't know if we're right there to say, but there was a wasp in our honey chocolate, and we got something like 4,000 likes on our Facebook because we told people about it, and the comments were, I'd eat that. I mean, anyway, or if it was plastic in it, it's still better than the purple stuff. I mean, you can't buy that sort of PR relationship, but I think it comes from the openness that we've had in the past.
Yeah. So tell actually a little bit about the back end of the strategy as far as social media goes. Is that something that was very deliberate from Whittaker's? Again, I know that probably would have started before your time, but is there a large team of people, or is there just 2 or 3 very committed individuals in the marketing team or comms team that run all of that?
Yeah, there are 2. I mean, our entire office staff is about 20 people. We're not as big as people think. We do rely on agencies, and we've had a long-term relationship with a creative agency. So the context with my experience is we've just started our Malaysian Facebook page about 4 months ago, and gone straight to 20,000 fans who actively engage in Malay, English, Chinese, Indonesian. I'm learning. I know what Malaysian for yummy is now. But they have always, and it is a stress to be able to reply to every comment within a certain time frame. And it's not about securing that button on Facebook, the image that says you're good at it. It's actually about the genuine relationship with the customer. So yeah, it's from day one on Facebook that's been the approach.
And how much research goes in? I guess there must be some pretty broad level of research that goes into customer insights in a new market, as there must do in New Zealand, I guess, on an ongoing basis, as you develop and decide where you're going to go. Is a lot of that, there's a big piece of work? But no.
I think everyone wants to sign up for that tasting panel or something to find out the next new product, but there are the group of 20 odd people who all love chocolate, and we kind of got a theory that if we judge it and we think it's good enough, then the consumers will love it as well. And we certainly won't let anything out that's less than perfect in our eyes. So we haven't done the consumer insight thing in New Zealand. Offshore, can't usually afford to do it, it's not in the budget. Had the joy of courtesy of New Zealand Trade and Enterprise in China, going into consumers' homes and going shopping with them and having a bit of an understanding about why they make purchase decisions, and that's more than I've had in any other chocolate market. So we're flying by the seat of our pants a little bit.
Yeah, out of interest, is there anyone in this room who's, I guess, in the export space or is with a business or a company? Rosa, certainly, I know you are. But out of interest, do you find, in terms of consumers here versus, I guess, Malaysia and what you learned in China, what are some of the key differences, or are there some real similarities, and that's what you go off?
No, absolutely different. I mean, portion size is number one, so no one else in the world buys 250 grams of chocolate and consumes it in 1 second. I think the average consumption per person in China is 70 grams, which is 3 of those placenta bars on the table per year. So consumption is different. Reason for purchase is different. So a lot of our markets it's a gift, and so how it is packaged, you might or may not have noticed, but we haven't had a Christmas package or an Easter package before, a Valentine's or a Halloween. We don't really do that here. We target the mainstream weekly in your shopping trolley purchase. Whereas somewhere like Singapore, 60% of chocolate is purchased for gifting. So that's been the insight, that rather than the flavour profile and things, that's what we've looked for, is the reason for consumption.
Interesting. And so from a packaging point of view and a wholesale product design point of view, things change massively, or does it still, if we were to go overseas and look for it, it's still much the same as we saw back here?
Much the same. The biggest you can find would be 200 grams overseas, which is the same as the Australian format. There might be a sneaky little thing called a halal logo on the back. So New Zealanders, well, actually more Australians aren't typically halal friendly, and Malaysian and our Middle Eastern markets require the halal logo, and we've got Arabic writing on the back. Completely fine in a bunch of markets and completely not suitable for others. So there are some nuances between.
Okay. So just for those people, I guess there are a lot of people here who are involved, I guess, within marketing roles, I would say, when I look through the invite list and who we've got on our sort of next gen list as it is. In terms of launching new products, are there sort of tips or tricks to success or things you've learned over the years in terms of putting something in a market, or indeed launching something via social media?
Yeah.
Things you would do, or lessons you've learned, challenges you've overcome?
I think there's more of the lessons we've learned. Historically, it used to just, here's a new product we've created in New Zealand, would you like it for an export market? Here's an image, here's the specs, go for it. So what we have learned that, two things, trial is absolutely important. So up to 10% of our sales revenue is spent back in sampling in store. And once, if you've got the right set of promoters doing that trial, then you can convert to purchase pretty easily. Secondly, social media, that's a recent launch for us. We've tried gifting products for there. Malaysia's a great market because they've got high percentage of Muslims, you've got the Indian culture, you've got Chinese, and you've got Christian. So they celebrate every holiday, and they've got like an open home policy. So even if you're Christian, you'll go to a Muslim house, and if you're Chinese, you'll go to the Indian, and you'll take chocolate. It's a perfect market. So they have a lot of gifts, and we've tried to create a lot of gifts for those occasions, but haven't really spent any effort because the money has gone into the product development. There's been nothing left to promote. So Christmas last year was the first time we had social media as a vehicle to do that. So we put it out there, and people started tagging themselves and their friends they wanted to buy. They're like, this is on my Christmas list, buy it for me. And then there'd be photographs of people holding the product in store and they bought it. And it just created this roll-on effect. And so Christmas with social media was the first seasonal offer that sold out.
Fantastic. And I assume, how important is it for you, and I even think back to your time at Icebreaker, to I guess tell that New Zealand story as part of that product launch and positioning?
It varies, and until last year we never had made in New Zealand on the front of pack, and it doesn't matter when you're a New Zealand company, right? So when some markets, say China, made in New Zealand means, say, food, and it's worth something. And they don't want a local package, and they don't want they would rather have a sticker on it to show it's imported than a customised pack. But other markets, New Zealand's not known for chocolate, so it's not really a selling point. But I think overall with Icebreaker or with Whittaker's, if you don't have a quality product, being made in New Zealand on it isn't going to do anything. It's probably going to be your second or your third story. So with Whittaker's, with Icebreaker, it was the mountains in the background created this sort of aspirational vision of where it all came from. It was beautiful. For us, we tie in a little bit with the cows and the milk and the green grass and things like that, but half the chocolate we sell overseas is dark and has nothing that comes from New Zealand except the love that goes into it. So it's probably a second or third tier story.
One of the things I found interesting too is just hearing about the differences, I guess, because you were in the early stage, you were one of the first 10 employees at Icebreaker, is that right?
That's right.
So can you tell me a little bit about, I guess, those early days and what it was like, I guess, being in that almost start-up phase just after Jeremy, well, actually not just after, he'd been around for 5 or 6 years, I think, for Icebreaker, before those first 10 employees came along. So what was it like in those early days and the excitement of building what was to become, a pretty significant digital brand for this country?
Yeah, I guess at that stage we were just starting to go offshore. I think we incorporated a company in Australia, which was pretty exciting. We had morning teas every Monday, and the 10 of us would sit around on the floor talking about the weekend because we had no couches. And it was, everybody did everything. So for me, stepping out of finance, well, I was there as finance, but I got the chance to look after inventory or be a model on the catwalk at the trade show once in one cycle. I was a fit model and I ruined women's media forever. It's like a different show to what I am now. But you did get a chance to get your finger in all the pies, and it was really, you just said yes. You stood up and you did it. If the phone rang, you answered it. If it was an order, you took it. Whatever needed to be done to keep the company moving, you did.
Fantastic. Well, no, good to know. And if you were to, it sounds like you took on every opportunity that came your way, but if you would offer advice, I guess, back to your young self and what you know now, back when you were 24 starting at Icebreaker, would you have done anything differently? Or?
No, I think that the Icebreaker thing worked for me, and I'm not a real goal setter ever. Last year I put some goals on the walls. First time I've done it since I was about 17. But when I was 17, I remember thinking I want to be married by 27. I was. Tick. Promote New Zealand overseas, and for me, Icebreaker became that, and earn $100,000 by the time I was 27. They were my 10-year goals. And I managed to do all of those things, but it wasn't the way I thought I would. I thought to promote New Zealand overseas, I thought you had to go into MFAD or something like that, but I realised that we've got a bunch of cool products and things that we can talk about, and you can build New Zealand's profile and be really proud of where you came from. And for me, it ended up having a role in Canada where I got flown back to New Zealand 4 times a year for my New Zealand fix. It was perfect.
Sounds ideal, it really does. So, as far as I guess your days at Whittaker's now, are there particular areas or elements of your role or your job that you just really push those passion buttons for you? Is this all getting Kiwis offshore, or marketing New Zealand offshore with a really amazing product?
Yeah, I do still like that. I have to, even though my role now is probably more strategy than sales and marketing, and back to Icebreaker for a minute, when I finished up in Canada, I said I love my job. I love it, except I don't like dealing with customers and I don't like dealing with staff. So I'm an introverted.
Are there any Whittaker's customers by any chance? Not anymore.
So what I figured out that for me, the best thing was to have internal customers. I like dealing with the company and making everyone else's lives better around me. And so my roles past that with Icebreaker were all internal roles. And because I had kids, I didn't want a team because I felt like I got more flexibility without having a team of staff. So when I went into Whittaker's, it was the same thing. I didn't really have an aspiration to lead a team of people, and I didn't have the aspiration to be face-to-face with customers all the time. Now, because we're dealing with distributors, we've got sort of 10 customers. It's not a huge number, you get to know them really well, and that suits my DNA.